Okay, so let's do this video. I've been wanting to talk about this for the last, I guess, like 3 weeks now. This is something that obviously is. I mean, I'm connecting it to the post credit scene because there was a little mention to a location where Rick's brother does actually live. But I wanted to talk about this idea because I've been seeing this actually come up, and I wanted to talk about whether or not this is actually possible because of this new story that they're sort of doing, and whether or not we could see Rick's brother actually appear in the Walking Dead universe at some point in the future. So obviously, before going any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want more Walking Dead content like this. Also, a new episode of the Forest Day podcast is now live, so definitely go check that out. The link for the podcast is down below. I also I posted it earlier on the community page of this channel, and yeah, it was a short little holiday special thing, and our plan is now, in terms of resuming, our next episode is going to be January 10th. We're going to take a break again, just a holiday break mostly, but also we want to kind of reset a little bit. And what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be doing 2 episodes a week, Monday and Thursday, or Monday and Friday. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be Thursday or Friday yet, but the episodes will be about a half an hour long. I mean, I noticed with the holiday special one, I think we almost rushed over certain topics a little bit more. I feel like we could have stayed on certain topics a little bit longer, but we were trying to get everything in within a half an hour. So I imagine we are going to go a little bit longer than a half an hour, but that's basically going to be like roughly the length of the podcast, and a half an hour to like maybe 45 minutes or something like that, just to keep it a little more entertaining, a little more interesting, and not let it get so slow. And also, we can actually do that. You know, when something's an hour and a half, it's very hard to do, at least at this point in our lives, because we have little kids. It's such a hard thing to do when it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we're just exhausted from the entire day, and now we got to sit up and do an hour and a half of recording, and then get up the next morning at 7 o'clock. So it is really, really hard to do, and a half an hour is literally nothing. Like a half an hour to record at night is literally nothing. So this is going to be our schedule starting next January 10th, but we do have 1 episode out right now, so definitely go check that out. Now, obviously, I mean, this started to come up a little bit more when in the post-credit scene, they mentioned Spain. And the reason why they mentioned Spain is because they're wondering where this new, I guess, team, Primrose team, or this other scientist team, for the most part, you know, like where it was this group. And the woman says Toledo, and he's like, Spain, like Toledo in Spain. And then the woman is like, no, Toledo in like Ohio or something. Like that basically confirms right there that, you know, there's certain powerful people, certain scientists and stuff like that have been sort of in control of this zombie apocalypse, or there's something that they know about creating this new variant, or creating the new, maybe just zombies in general, right? Maybe just creating walkers in general. And so there's some sinister things here that, you know, kind of, I mean, the location's in Ohio, the Commonwealth is in Ohio, so it's a little eerie, right? That could have been a little nod there to what we're going to expect in part 2, because Gimple has teased that in part 2 of season 11. We're going to be getting into that. So the man, however, mentioned Spain, and obviously you mentioned Spain in the Walking Dead universe, everybody immediately goes to, well, that's Rick's brother, right? Because in the comic, Rick's brother is actually in Barcelona, Spain, when the zombie apocalypse goes down, and he is trapped over there. And it's one of those things that kind of randomly came up. Nobody knew he had a brother, though they did mention one little piece of dialogue very, very early on. It was like issue 1 or issue 3, I think, actually. I think Lori says something about Rick's brother, you know, and I something like Rick's brother, Jeff. It was like some weird sort of little like one line thing that meant nothing. It was never brought up again in the series, in the entire comic series. So, you know, that is also very similar to the television show, where Rick doesn't really talk about his family kind of at all. And that is like the unbelievability of this whole thing, right? Like, could they do a Rick's brother story? Because obviously on the show, Rick has not talked about his brother ever. Doesn't even have a brother. He's never really talked about any of his siblings. We've heard things about his father, and I think his grandfather, but that's about it. We know nothing about his family. If he had cousins, just really anything, any siblings at all. Because I doubt he was an only sibling. I mean, maybe he was. Could have been an only child, right? But I think that there is a possibility that he definitely has a brother out there, that he definitely has some family out there. You know, Rick is the type of person that doesn't really ever talk about family, like really ever. And I mean like his past family. Obviously his whole story is about family. I don't mean that. I just mean like his past life. He doesn't really talk about the past. He kind of focuses on the now, right? He's always been that way. He's never dwelled on things that have happened in the past. He just focuses on the now, the present, and trying to survive, right? That's basically been what, like, I remember Andrew Lincoln once was asked about, what would happen if Rick tried to find a cure or whatever. The way Andrew Lincoln described it was like, I don't even think he would really care so much about it. Like, to him, he would just be like, okay, a cure, we can get you here, or maybe that'll be really good. But to him, he's not thinking like we need to find a cure to save this and beat this thing. He's sort of already accepted the reality around him the second it happened and is just trying to survive and adapt to this thing. Whereas a lot of people, I think, are in denial about the zombie apocalypse for a long time, or too scared. And then I think just sort of, that's how they die off and stuff pretty easily. And Rick is somebody who adapts very quickly, is very focused on the present. And I think that's a big reason why we haven't heard of any of his family. And so, the unbelievability factor of this, like if they introduced it now, does that make sense? I still think it makes sense in terms of the character. Like Rick doesn't talk about his family a lot. He's mentioned his father once, maybe twice. I know he's mentioned his grandfather, I believe. So it's like, there's like literally, we know nothing about his life in the past. Like he could easily have a brother at some point. Honestly, where it's unbelievable is just sort of, I guess, from about a behind the scenes standpoint, right? Like trying to come up with a way or introducing this character now, once the show is, I mean, obviously the ratings aren't what it used to be like 5 years ago, right? 5-6 years ago. And so I think that's the one thing. I think a lot of people, if they were to do it, people are going to be like, oh, that's just desperate, right? And so it's hard because I think it would be a really great story. It's something that is actually in the comic. In the comic, even when Rick had a brother, he never talked about his brother. The one line in the comic that was about his brother, Lori talked about him. Right. And so Rick literally had, like, he didn't mention his family at all, didn't mention a single thing about his brother. So it makes sense that Andrew Lincoln or hit like Rick Grimes in the show would do the same. It's just not in his character. Maybe they weren't really that close because there was a pretty big age difference, right? It wasn't as big as like Andrea and Amy, but it was significant. I think it was at least 10 years or something like that. So like I see it as being very possible. And I think the way that you could do it, if you ever wanted to do it, is it would be in some dialogue with, like, I don't know, Judith says something, right? Like maybe Judith just kind of knows this because Michonne has had conversations with like her mom about something, and it would be something that would be a small Easter egg that would sort of confirm it. And then he wouldn't be introduced still on like any spinoff or whatever for a couple years. Like honestly, Tales of the Walking Dead, like they could totally do that story. They could cast somebody for that. And now obviously in the comic, like Rick's brother does actually die, right? He's much younger, like I said, but and he does die. He gets bit on that boat, and yeah, I mean they could do a Tales of the Walking Dead episode on that story, right? On Rick's brother, and then just sort of kill him off there. I would say that that's just a waste of a character, in my opinion. Like Rick's brother, if you can get a really good actor to play Rick's brother, like that's already really big. He'll be a fan favorite immediately, and I think we need some more fan favorites like that on the show, or just in the universe in general, right? And so, like I would say, overall, I think that this is possible. But I'm mostly in the camp that believes that it'll never happen because there's so many things that, I mean, it's not that unrealistic. You could do it, but it does come across as desperate, right? Even though that I don't even think they're really desperate for anything anymore, right? I think a couple of years ago, you could say that AMC and The Walking Dead and all that were desperate for ratings and stuff like that because, like they dropped really far. They were on this path of like, just if you look at the ratings for season 5, they were insane. Even in season 6 and then 7 started to drop off, and I could say in season 7 and 8, definitely you could see that they were more desperate then, especially with season 8, because I believe that's why they killed off Carl, right? And that in the end eventually just kind of backfired on them. And then in season 9, the ratings started to go down, and I think at that point they just kind of accepted it. And I think that's why since season 9, they haven't really done any of these like gimmicks for the most part like they used to. Like I mean, one thing, Gimple's not the showrunner anymore. That's one. But also, like, they haven't really focused on trying to like do things for ratings for the most part. They just kind of write content, make content, release content, You know, they'll hype it up and do their own little things, but like they don't ever overpromise really for the most part anymore. You know, before World Beyond season 2 even aired, like they said that Rick's not going to be in it. Don't expect that. And you know, there are certain elements of like, you know, fan expectations versus like what writers and what they're actually planning, right? You know, maybe we expected a lot more from World Beyond, and I still think they should have delivered. I'm not saying it's like 100% like it was all on us. Like, definitely, I think they should have delivered a lot more there. But I'll just say that it's not as bad as it used to be. Like, during season 7 and 8, it used to be really bad with all the cliffhangers and all the big shocking moments for no reason. You know, Carl's death was a big one. They kind of did it before too in season 6, obviously. And in season 6 with the cliffhanger, that was all to do with ratings and also with the Glenn Dumpster thing and with Daryl getting shot by Dwight. Like, it was everywhere. And I'm convinced anyways it was all about ratings back then. To write it that way and script it that way, I think it makes the most sense. So I think just at this point, you know, obviously television networks care about ratings, but I don't know if they necessarily do so much for The Walking Dead because they do have like AMC Plus and stuff that they make money from. I mean, so many people have AMC Plus. I have AMC Plus. So like, you know, at this point, it's something that they're very dedicated to. And I think that if they want to introduce some really crazy ideas like this, I think it's possible, but I don't know. That really depends on some fan reaction. I think that's definitely something that I'll leave to you guys. Post your thoughts down below. Like, would you be okay with Rick's brother showing up in like Tales of the Walking Dead or like just in some future spinoff in the movies even, right? Like, would you be okay with Rick's brother just really appearing at all in general, being introduced as just a thing? Like, yeah, definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Make sure to be a subscriber if you want more Walking Dead content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.